The safe sat behind 3 doors, each once requiring coded clearance, now silent and obsolete. Its steel surface bore faint crescent scratches, relics of hands that had not returned for decades. Dust rested in perfect, straight lines along the floor, tracing a history of absence. The office around it seemed preserved rather than lived in, like a snapshot of careful restraint. When the steel door swung open, expectation met emptiness. Nothing inside weighed anything. Only a single folded inventory sheet leaned against the back wall, a record of holdings that had long since vanished. No explanation accompanied it. Only dates. Only relocation codes. Only quiet, disciplined absence. Even in that emptiness, the safe seemed to command attention. The firm occupied the upper floors of a narrow, unassuming building. From the street, it appeared ordinary. No signage, no glass facades, no indication of influence. Yet inside, decisions moved like water through silent channels. Rooms were constructed to absorb sound, minimize reflection, and create a space where behavior could be observed rather than directed. Authority flowed quietly, through implication rather than instruction. Oversight responsibilities rested with the observer. Files appeared through discrete internal channels, layered with approvals yet stripped of commentary. Instructions were whispered through expectation, and influence traveled without announcement. The safe, situated at the end of a subdued corridor, existed in this ecosystem not as a tool, but as a structural assumption. The safe had existed long before digital systems replaced physical records. Reinforced steel, mechanical dial, independent of modern networks. Its presence was noted in records under foundational security, though no active holdings appeared within. Its function had evolved. It no longer stored assets. It preserved authority through presence alone. The surrounding office was minimal, a heavy desk without drawers, neutral walls that absorbed sound, and a single narrow window facing a concrete courtyard. Ceiling lights emitted a soft, unwavering glow, erasing shadows without spectacle. Dust lines revealed patterns of movement across decades. Everything about the space emphasized permanence rather than immediacy. The combination had been received once, in a wordless meeting, and never repeated. No escort followed past the final checkpoint. The safe had never been intended as a spectacle. It existed quietly, shaping expectation without display. When the protective cover was removed and the dial turned, the door opened smoothly. No resistance, no drama. The interior reflected light faintly off polished steel, but contained nothing tangible. Only absence. Only the folded inventory sheet, listing holdings that had long since been relocated. Yet even in its emptiness, the safe exerted influence. The sheet detailed assets removed years earlier, marked relocated. No receiving locations, no verification, no signatures. The safe had been empty for decades, yet it remained a reference point for decision-making. Its emptiness carried authority. Its presence alone molded behavior. Observation revealed patterns. References to the safe tempered proposals, slowed overly optimistic forecasts, and influenced the framing of risk. Analysts, internal teams, and even external consultants adjusted automatically, responding to perception rather than fact. Conversations shifted subtly when the safe was mentioned, tones softened, recommendations became measured. Influence occurred without demonstration. The safe dictated behavior without asserting itself. The observer recognized the tension between expectation and evidence. Emptiness produced leverage that visible wealth could not. Control resided in perception, not possession. The safe was a discipline of absence. It reminded decision-makers that restraint could shape outcomes more effectively than intervention. At first, the observer considered updating the system, clarifying the sheet, even digitizing records to reflect reality. Each option threatened to disrupt subtle psychological alignment. Intervention might replace stability with transparency, destabilizing behavior that had been carefully conditioned. Restraint preserved influence. Competitors displayed assets aggressively, seeking visibility as leverage. Public declarations demanded constant maintenance, inviting scrutiny. Some flourished temporarily before exposure revealed weakness. By contrast, the firm's quiet structure moved with continuity, buffered by historical perception and the disciplined absence of its holdings. The observer returned after hours, opening the door only enough to confirm constancy. The hollow steel reflected corridor light, creating subtle illusions of depth. Nothing inside suggested deception. Only historical residue and continuity remained. Its symbolic power existed precisely because it required no maintenance. Control flowed from absence, not execution. No action was required. Only attention, only awareness, only the recognition that perception, once disciplined, could shape outcomes without intervention. The observer began to understand that influence rarely required intervention. Systems responded to assumption, not material presence. Internal processes adjusted automatically when conditions demanded, moderating risk, aligning expectations, and maintaining stability. The safe functioned as a behavioral regulator, invisible yet effective. Its emptiness encouraged reflection and patience rather than impulsive reaction. Decision-makers deferred to perception rather than verification. The symbol stabilized outcomes silently, consistently, and without announcement. The observer felt the initial urge to clarify, to correct, to digitize, to render truth visible. Yet awareness deepened. Intervention could disrupt subtle alignments carefully established over decades. Real control resided in continuity, not in execution. Awareness replaced action. Observation became strategy. Restraint became authority. Closed meetings confirmed the effect. Accelerated discussions slowed at the mention of the safe. Risk assumptions recalibrated. No one questioned the contents, and none verified holdings. Influence emerged through perception, not possession. Control could persist silently. The observer realized that sometimes the most powerful intervention is non-intervention. By acknowledging absence, by not disturbing the status quo, influence extended across time. The safe did not enforce behavior, it invited it. Restraint had become a tool of long-term control. Over months, the firm navigated volatile markets with calm efficiency. Competitors pursuing visibility-driven growth faced scrutiny and instability. The quiet structure preserved focus and measured outcomes. References to the safe continued to guide behavior subtly, without explicit direction. The observer opened the safe occasionally, not to check assets, but to acknowledge the constancy of absence. No embellishment, no myth-making. The system relied solely on perception. New employees, unaware of the safe's significance, absorbed the conditioned behaviors established by decades of disciplined absence. Digital systems gradually tracked actual holdings, yet the safe's symbolic function endured, naturally fading without disruption. Its influence had already shaped long-term behavior. Years later, during renovation, The safe was scheduled for removal. The observer supervised its extraction. Inside remained the folded inventory sheet, untouched. No alarms. No adjustments. No disruption. Processes continued seamlessly. The hollow space revealed older layers of construction, but no one questioned the absence. Quiet influence had endured because expectation had been disciplined, not because physical holdings persisted. Conversations accelerated. Decisions executed with immediacy. Some subtle advantages embedded in perception quietly disappeared. The firm adapted. Confidence shifted from symbolic expectation to measurable control. The empty safe had exerted influence precisely because nothing inside demanded attention. Absence had guided behavior more effectively than possession ever could. After renovation, the observer passed the former location of the safe. The office felt lighter, less anchored. Walls had been removed. Lighting brightened. Furniture updated. Noise returned to spaces once muted by perception. Decisions carried urgency. Conversations moved rapidly. Subtle advantages embedded in long-standing expectation vanished unnoticed. Yet the lessons of restraint endured. Structures built on disciplined perception can shape behavior long after their tangible substance disappears. Influence need not be executed to persist. The office no longer required active oversight to maintain stability. The symbol had completed its purpose. Quiet restraint established patterns. Observed behavior confirmed influence, not through material presence, but through enduring perception. Moral influence often resides in absence, not possession. Control compounds when restraint is maintained. Reflective question: which structures in your world continue to shape behavior long after their substance has disappeared?